Hi people, now I'm live again with a live stream that I'm doing where I'm going to react to a very interesting person that I hope people know. I'm going to react not to a debate but to a interview with Jerry Taylor because as everybody know about me, I like Jerry Taylor and I don't agree with everything, but you never agree with everything with anybody. But I agree with most things, and it's gonna be a very funny video. It's gonna be very, very funny, I believe. And yeah, so this is basically today's live stream that I'm making. Yeah, so here it is. I'm sorry, I just need to before everybody starts. I just need to like order some few things. So yeah, now I have everything ordered. So now I'm going to start sharing. Now I'm going to share a very, very funny little video. Why do I keep talking? I'm retarded. Okay. This is so funny. This is so fucking funny. Holy smokes, this is funny. But yeah, regardless. Here is the video. Before we start, I just need to ask, does your mic work?
I think so. Can you hear me?
I can't
Hello?
hear what you say.
Can you hear me?
Okay, I assume I should just start the video and then hope it gets figured out throughout the video's course. If everybody hear me, let me know if you hear the video or not.
I'm Alan Coulter. I want to welcome Jared Taylor, founder and editor of American Renaissance. Mr. Taylor, thank you very much for coming on the program tonight.
Oh no! My computer's fucked. My computer, something happened to it, and my sound doesn't work at all for some reason. I need to set that in order. I'm so sorry, but holy, there's something happened.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
It is something wrong with. I'm fixing out my stupid computer who I've fucking turned off. Sorry, my computer turned off the sound, and I'm trying to fix it back together again. Holy smokes! And now the wires are completely fucked, and I try to fix that. Okay, everything should work now. Everything should work now. Okay, good. And now. Oh shit! Okay, that's too bad. But this is gonna be quite funny.
You have been writing a bit about Donald Trump, and I know you are known as someone to promote white interests, which you do with American Renaissance.
Which is good.
Why do you say that Donald Trump might be the last best hope for white America?
Well, because
Makes sense.
it is obviously in the interest of whites to maintain a white majority in the United States.
That is correct.
Because as the population changes, everything changes with it. For example, if a neighborhood becomes black or Mexican, white people move out. If you ask a white person to name a majority black or Hispanic or immigrant neighborhood he'd like to live in, he'll probably come up with nothing. Or if you ask someone, how about a majority Hispanic school that you'd like to send your children to, they can't come up with one because things change in such a substantive way. And so why on earth should whites be in favor of an immigration policy that is making more and more schools the kind they wouldn't want to send their children to, and more neighborhoods, the kind of neighborhood they wouldn't want to live in.
Don't you?
Yeah, that makes absolutely perfect sense because, like, as people, any people, regardless of what race or ethnicity you are, if you're the majority in a given area, right? It just makes sense that you want to be the remain that way. So granted, I know not all white people are the same ethnicity, we should acknowledge that, and he does as well. But it's also true that whites have like the same legal category, which means we have the same rights as other white people, right? So because of that, I think it makes pretty much sense to remain a white majority. And when it comes to Hispanics, even though many Hispanics are white, they're still classified as being somehow different, which makes them gives them more rights. And it's a language thing. It's like if your language in a neighborhood is English, you don't want it to change to Spanish. And the same goes for any language, like French, English, whatever, right? It doesn't really, it applies to all of it. But yeah, now we're gonna move on.
I feel if we had more integration and more diversity, and we accepted that as we become the great melting pot more and more that we were purported to be.
Melting pots never existed. There's no such thing as a melting pot anywhere in the world. That's a propaganda technique caused by just like Western bullshit. It's nothing. It's never existed. It has never existed. It does not. It's bullshit. It's complete bonkers. And if you say that you want that, you're literally saying that the people in a given country should like cease being what makes them their ethnicity. They should disappear, which is borderline genocidal, and that's evil. That's evil, and that's wrong. Melting pot is a lie, and it's evil. It's horrible. It's just degenerate bullshit. And also that you have already diversity. You have diversity within white people. If you take a country in America, basically almost any country outside of Europe is majority white, or any white population outside of Europe are going to be diverse. There are going to be so many different types of Europeans, and they already have diversity, which is fine. And that it should not melting pot those either, because that's also wrong. So he's double wrong, and he doesn't even contend. How can you blend all two people together and still have diversity? It doesn't make any sense. The reason why America can sustain diversity is because you have francophone people in places like fucking Louisiana, right? And if they were to melt with all the other people, then you wouldn't really have a French speak language at all, which was tried in the past, which was cultural genocide, and that was wrong. So all melting pot ideology is absolute bullshit. People can integrate how much they want, but the idea of like we need more integration, like, can people please explain to me why integration is such a good thing? If it was such a good thing, people would do it on their own. And when people want to integrate, they do that voluntarily, right? So anybody who say, "Oh, integration is good," okay, then why are people doing it so much? Why are people rejecting it?
Right.
People just do. That's just human. Like if I, for example, live in an area, and I move to a different area. If I live in an area, right, and other people move in, why would I want them to integrate if they're changing the area that already is? Well, they can integrate if they become a lot like us, but like, I still don't want, the demographics to change. Why would I want that? That doesn't
Right.
benefit my genes. And that's just what's fundamentally speaking is that humans, just all living organisms, we want to benefit our genes, and if our genetic makeup becomes a small number in a given area, then it's going to be harder for us to find spouses of the same ethnicity, and also for us to breed for our children if we look to breed with people and with the same genetics in that area.
Yes.
Right. And that's not very good, even if they're both white, right? It's like the only reason why I care the most about the white category is because at least then I won't stand out so much, and also I would not have different rights than they would. That kind of makes sense. It sounds reasonable.
That
Makes
would
sense.
all, and schools, would even out. Separate is not equal, as you know.
Even out, meaning that some people have it worse, some people have it better, and you drag these down the problem. Why do you want to even out stuff? That's stupid. Wouldn't you want to improve the life for everybody? And can't you improve the life of certain people without having them to move and integrate with others? Can't their life improve regardless of other people? So I don't really think that like countries like China needed. They didn't need to integrate with Luxembourg to improve the standard of living, for example. So why the fuck would our neighborhood, who's primarily black, improve their education by integrating with white people? You see how that doesn't make any sense, right?
Right.
The Supreme Court has said. But as we evolve and we become more of an amalgam, it all comes out in the wash, does it not?
No, it doesn't. That's a lie. And why would you want to genocide the beautiful diversity of America? That's evil. America was never founded as amalgamation. It was founded as different states being different. Melting pot is a lie. And the reason we can see that is the reason why New Mexico and Louisiana are very different cultures compared to fucking North Dakota, right? One have the largest secondary language in these states are Spanish, French, and German. If you want more immigration, more even it out, you will cease that, and everyone will become first primarily English and then secondary Spanish. They will destroy diversity, and it would be horrible.
Well, the melting pot, in fact, worked when all of the ingredients were from Europe. But the melting pot ceases to work very well when you have to melt across racial lines.
I don't exactly agree with him here. He have a point saying that Europeans put things together. When people of similar race are put together, they are more likely to breed with each other than otherwise, because people are usually naturally inclined to breed with people of similar genetics. Other people appear to have similar genetics, right? And people are closer to them, they'll still choose that if people are closest are not available, right? But that's not a melting pot. That's just natural integration, right? Because in America was a thing, like German immigration from Prussia caused a civil war in America because they had so vastly different values, and why many are better than the native Anglos, by the way. And I'm talking about not wanting slavery, which was a good thing, right? So I don't agree 100%, but you still have a good point.
Human beings are just by nature tribal, and race is one of the most difficult fault lines to try to bridge of any kind of social difference.
You don't believe that blacks can live successfully in a civilized society, is that correct? You've questioned that.
No, that's false. Look, this motherfucker is the one who's saying that blacks need to integrate with others to have a good time, whatever, which is complete bonkers. They can have it just as well without us and with us. We doesn't actually matter, right? It's a lot of people use us as scapegoat for a reason for blacks not to achieve anything. That's the only thing, which is the one reason why integration is not the solution. Truth is the solution. Yauchel does not even believe that. He believes race are different and naturally create different societies.
Well, I think that the record of blacks is not a very encouraging one. South of the Sahara, before contact with either Arabs or whites, there was no written language. Nobody had figured out the wheel. Nobody had domesticated an animal. No calendars, no mechanical devices, no two-story buildings. No, it's not a very encouraging record. And also, wherever you find blacks today, you find the same combination of poverty, high crime rates, high illegitimacy rates.
What does race have to do with it? Why does skin color have anything to do with it?
I mean, like, this is a sort of dumb thing he's saying, Jerry Taylor. I mean, like, Jerry Taylor is correct, because in sub-Saharan Africa, there were not really a need to have all these things, because humans originally evolved for the African climate, which means that Africa had less need to change the environment, because it was already adapted for humans, while the rest of the world was not to the same extent, which caused more of an alteration to the climate. And first of all, Jerry Taylor mentioned race, and then he said skin color. The other guy said skin color, right? That's dumb, because like race is not just skin color, right? The Austric race and the sub-Saharan race are the furthest away that you can be, right? But they're both the darkest, right? But they're more like me genetically than they are to each other.
It's not a question of skin color. It's the way that different human groups have evolved. The evidence is overwhelming that although skin color itself is a minor detail, there are many, many other important genetic differences between groups that are far more important than skin color. As you probably know, there are some medical discoveries that have found that certain drugs work better with certain races rather than other races. As science progresses, we will learn more and more about the important genetic differences between the racial groups.
Now, I know you've been called a white supremacist, but you've
Which is
actually,
false.
in innocent way, you don't like that term because you actually believe that East Asians are more intelligent than white people. Is that accurate?
Well, I don't like the term white supremacist for a lot of reasons. That implies that white people want to rule over people of other races. I think most white people today just want to be left alone.
That's correct.
Are you a white separatist?
I believe in complete freedom of association. And when people have complete freedom, they tend to end up with people like themselves. And when it comes to the question of immigration, the fact that people have grown up in America and suddenly find themselves living in an outpost of Mexico or Haiti or Guatemala, they never ask for that, and they don't like it, and they move out. I think this is a terrible, terrible imposition on Americans who expected to be living in a country that embraces Western civilization.
Well, my grandparents came from they came from Russia, actually, the Ukraine. They didn't speak English, knew nothing, knew nobody, had no money when they came here. They assimilated. Why would we not?
Did they really?
And
Because go on.
Oh, sorry. Well,
No,
I
you-
was just going to say, and that's why it's good to have a immigration policy that's invite only, so that you can only go if you're invited in, and that means the people want you there.
Yeah, Monaco got there. They're doing fine. You see how good, although generally, but the Monegasque people have become a minority now, which is kind of bad. But
And you're right about did they fully integrate? I don't believe a first generation immigrant can fully integrate. They're always going to have that identity. Like my father, he was a immigrant from the Netherlands, and I even still have a Dutch identity because of that. So it's like I have an identity that's very different than other white Americans because of that.
yeah, it's very
And
good if
that's-
people. Oh, go on.
So that would mean like I didn't fully integrate, right? Because my identity isn't fully American.
Yeah, but that's actually a good thing in my opinion, because I tend to see it as like my ethnicity is more of a it's like separate from my nationality. But I mean by that is that I can have a nationality
is.
and embrace that, which is good. But usually what people tend to do, which is a very good thing, a very healthy development, is that people tend to place their own ethnicity as being a part of their people's presence in their country. Being a good thing, right? Because if I were to go to any country where my people have lived or live, and I could integrate, I would basically say, I like this country because I like to live here because my people live here. Not all of them, but some of them do, right? And we have a historical precedence. And if I were to integrate and get that nationality, right, I would just incorporate that as part of my identity. It's a very good. It's because the ethnicity and the nationality goes on very well together. But the idea of just assimilating people is so bad, because you take away that identity, right? And if you do that and other people come in, the people who reject that assimilation, right? If you integrate your ethnicity with your nationality, that's a good thing. But if you assimilate, that means you're going to get the short end of the stick when more people immigrate. Like, it might not happen in a year, or even 100 years, but it's going to happen someday. So that's the reason why doing that is always a bad thing, because then you're always going to be at the short end of the stick. So never do that ever. And I don't really think his family really didn't integrate, because as America was founded as a country for different states that were considered to be different, have different cultures, right? And be different, right? The idea of having this universal melting pot of everybody being the same. It's actually a very recent development. It's not part of the original American identity even.
It also makes me think it would be better if we had more borders between the states too. So a lot of people, from like Texas don't want Californians moving there, or like a lot of people in Virginia don't want people from Maryland to move there.
Exactly.
Because they change the politics of those states. So
yeah, like I have an example of this because there are Doyle speaking communities both in Louisiana and Wisconsin, right? So if people come in with and spoke another language in English or a Doyle language, Doyle include French in Pata, by the way. If people come in and spoke like Spanish or any other language, now I wouldn't like that um, because then my people language would drop, right? I don't
yeah,
mind people speaking Spanish, but like if you live in Louisiana, it's like there's so many states in America that have more Spanish speakers than French speakers, right? Louisiana is the only exception, right?
right.
Um, that have French speakers as being second. Like, and if that changed, then that would be an absolute tragedy. The same thing happened in New Orleans, it was mainly Creole, and when so many white people moved there because they liked the place were good, then people were sad because it would cease being a copper colored city, so to speak, right? Um, so yeah, I do
Yeah.
think that like the states need to maintain their unique identity and the melting pot lie because the lie is a recent thing. So when people come from other countries say, "Oh, we're all the same," because they don't know the difference between fucking Virginia and Tennessee or Alabama because they weren't in those regions historically, right? So how could they know, right? So that's why I say I don't really believe fully integrate because they want to change America. And then we said, "Oh, more immigration because," and then we change America more. So no, I don't. I think I don't believe that it's true. I don't trust him.
Expect that other people of other races wouldn't do the same thing.
Because we see the record of this attempt to do so. As I said earlier, assimilation seems to work when the differences are sometimes linguistic, it takes a while, when they are cultural, even sometimes religious. Those things do not get assimilated without hiccups. But race, again, is a very difficult thing. There are two groups who have been in this country or on this continent probably for much longer than your parents or ancestors who came from Eastern Europe, and those are blacks and American Indians. They have not assimilated the way your ancestors did, and the basic problem is race. Race is a fundamental biological fact. And
I do agree with him in general, but I have to be a little bit different. And what I mean by that is that I do think that one of the reasons why Black Americans and Native American Indians didn't is because if they and the Anglos and the Blacks came about the same time, or they come first and then the Anglos and the Blacks came later, right? Like if they are different in the same country, right? Why should they go to the other place? Like why should the Anglos and the Blacks and the Natives assimilate with each other if they're already different? Like
Right.
because then they have to give up what makes them different, right? That's the reason why we have Spanish and French speakers in America because these people were here before and they were annexed. So why would they give up what makes them different? Because if they do that, your culture dies, right? And it only happened in and then when German immigration was so much, they actually changed the landscape from being francophone and anglophone to being German speaking, right?
Right.
And the only reason why German and French was suppressed later was because the cultural genocide by the American government, which was wrong. That's the assimilation and melting pot that people say is a good thing, which is not a good thing. It's an evil thing, fundamentally.
Right. And I'm sure the I was just gonna say, I'm sure the Native Americans feel the same way about, the Europeans coming over and taking over the land.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right,
that was
like why
very
would
bad.
they?
That was very, very bad for them.
Yeah, generally it was actually.
Yeah.
Like not gonna say it all because some of them actually have a higher standard of living now because of that, but the
Right.
cost of losing your majority is a really bad thing, and I think that anybody have a right to reject demographic replacement, right? And they probably would if they could, right? But the thing is that because this European society was so more advanced and they could just copulate better and settle the land in different areas in a different way, and because so many tribal are nomadic and sparsely populated, the Europeans were like, well, you're not using this part of land, why can't I go here,
Right. Yeah.
which makes sense, right? But why should Europeans, which is a race, why should they like immigration from other people that replaces them? No, why would they accept that? There's no reason that no human
Right.
should accept that. Demographic replacement is a bad thing for the people being
And
replaced.
yeah, and then not only that, it's a bad thing not only for the majority, but also for the minority, because it, like, the Native Americans, you know, in the US are now a minority. But if there's more and more immigration, there'll be even more of a minority.
Right, that's so true.
So
That's the same in other countries. Like if you have immigration to Germany and France, then people like the Black Germans and the Bretons are going to shrink to even a smaller minority than they already are, right? So why would they even want that? Like, why would any minority want to have other people coming in and then shrinking that minority to even smaller minority than it already is? That's horrible. That's like actually almost even more dangerous than for the majority itself. So demographic replacement is also harmful for the minorities that aren't part of the people that are coming in.
right.
Attempt to build a multiracial society founders on the fact that race is this terrible divide.
Well, you mentioned American Indians. We white people came here and took land. We stole from the Native American. We are interlopers in their world, are we not?
Not all the time. That happens a lot, but not all time that happened. It was sometimes they were trading, sometimes they were treaties. But yeah, this happened a lot of the time, which was a tragedy and it was bad, but it wasn't like a universal thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, we are. There's no question about that.
Yes.
And if diversity is a great thing, then it should be Christmas year-round for the Indians, shouldn't it?
Well, had we not stolen from them, maybe it would be. Now, Mark...
Then why would you have... Should the European Americans have more immigration then? Because then it would be bad for them if the government steal their shit and gives to immigrants, which they are, by the way. Taxation and giving people special treatment is a thing. That's more a thing in Europe than in America, but still.
I know you're not a big fan of the Southern Poverty Law Center. I'm
Because they're
guessing you're
evil.
not. Mark Potok and Heidi
They're
Byridge
liars.
say that you are the cultivated cosmopolitan face of white supremacy, the guy providing the intellectual heft, in effect, to modern-day Klansmen. What?
Yeah, that's slander, and he should report him for libel, and they should pay him a fine.
What's your reaction to that? You've heard that quote before, I'm sure.
You know, the Southern Poverty Law Center really has a sweet deal. They find people with whom they have some sort of political disagreement, and then they decide, in their wisdom and their bliss, to pronounce them as hate mongers, as if they can read people's minds. I think that's a contemptible thing. They're trying to shut people out of political discourse simply by labeling them something nasty.
Well, nobody's stopping you from talking, but I mean, if you're going to say that whites are intellectually superior than blacks, East Asians intellectually superior to whites, aren't you not promoting a caste system and a judgment based on race? And
the only people who have a caste system based on race is people with affirmative action. The left have always promoted that, right? They are the ones that are close to that. So why does this guy waste time with Jerry Taylor, who's not in power, when he actually could just go critique affirmative action? Well, Asians are in the lowest, and then the black and the white gets to be like the norm, I suppose. But like, that's wrong. Shouldn't you want to be opposed if you oppose racial hierarchy?
Right.
And can't that lead to some very dire consequences?
It is.
I think that any society has to be built on the truth. And it may be a very agreeable and pleasant illusion to think that all the racial groups are absolutely geometrically, mathematically equal. There is no evidence to suggest this. Instead, we assume that all the races are equal, and then when they don't turn out equal, we blame white people. That's the way America works.
Not only America, that's the way basically all countries in the Western, not just Western, like basically any country that have Europeans in them that have been influenced by a Western country at one point in history basically work that way.
Yeah. And I just want to say, like, people readily acknowledge that, you know, individuals can be very different from one another, right?
Well, obviously.
But then when you talk about groups of individuals, like, yeah, they can also be very different from one another, right? So yeah, it's just a lie to think that everybody's going to have, you know, be equal and have like equal outcomes when everybody is, they have different biology and different history and different culture and different identity.
Which is fine. No, it's fine.
Yeah,
It's
which
good.
is fine.
Good. Yeah, and also like if you use like people doesn't really think this, right? But the main difference between ethnicities is they only different genetics, but which makes them different phenotypically, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the main difference between ethnicities, because what the majority of human genes actually think that actually differs from different ethnic groups, it's actually the brains of different ethnic groups. So if you have two people with different ethnicity, the main difference is actually the individual brain between ethnicities, right? That's the closest thing, because that's what the majority of genetics are determining when it comes to humans, right?
It's the brain.
Like,
okay.
Yeah, and almost nobody knows that, because like
I didn't know that.
If you say that, people will be like, wow, that doesn't mean other people are bad. It also means that we are actually more not just individual but also ethnicities. The main difference between us is our brains. Between us, the guys in the videos, all of us, the 4 people that are in the video, the main difference is the brain, and that's mainly due to racial heritage. Nothing wrong with that. That's good. That's cool. That's awesome. Human diversity is a great thing. Don't you all love it? Diversity is a good thing.
As long as it's not forced diversity, yes, it's a good thing.
Well, of course, forced anything is terrible. Like forcing like diversity or integration or even segregation, forcing any of that is like terrible. It's awful. Just let humans be humans. Humans are just gonna be different and diverse on their own.
Right.
Blacks or Hispanics aren't performing at the same level of whites. We blame white people when in fact the explanation most probably has to do with genetic differences. That's an utterly unfair and false way to build a society.
Let's talk about Donald Trump. When you say it's the last hope for a president, and I'm quoting you directly,
he's the great hope.
American Renaissance, who would be good for white people. You say and we can be sure. You say he's not a bait and switch politician who excites supporters with a few sensible ideas and then betrays them. You want to talk about how well he doesn't need anybody's money. He'd sell fun. Well, he's already done a bait and switch on that because he's now taking other people's money. Why would you believe he's not going to bait and switch on immigration, the key issue in your mind?
Oh, I can't be sure. You're certainly correct about that. It's impossible, really, to read someone's mind, and I would be disappointed if you did. But
technically, I'm actually more likely to be able to read Donald Trump's mind because Trump has Scottish ancestry like me, so we are very similar genetically, I suppose. Because the main difference between ethnicities is the brain.
He has based his success and his popularity so far, I think, primarily on his position on immigration. And so I think it would be very, very difficult for him to change that.
You also talk about the key, you say, would be a few well-publicized raids on non-criminal illegals. Television images of Mexican families dropped over the border with no more than they could carry would be very powerful. So you're supporting raids on undocumented immigrants who are not criminals.
They are criminals. They're illegal entering another country, makes them criminals.
You want those images on television?
The best way to get illegal immigrants to deport themselves would be give them fair notice. You would say, okay, in X number of months, we will start deporting people, and they don't have to be criminals. You can choose the time to leave yourself, or you can wait until we come and make you leave. Under those circumstances, if that were a credible policy, many would self-deport. And those who waited around to see to test the policy, if you had the scenario that you just described, people who were just uprooted and sent home, that would be a very, very powerful message, and you wouldn't have to do that very often.
You want to raid factories, you want to raid classrooms, you want to separate families, right?
No, I'm not insisting on separating families at all. Family unification is one of the principles of our immigration policy on the assumption that families should stay together. But if a family is made up of illegals and legals, and that's often the case because of this crazy anchor baby system we have, in which an illegal immigrant comes here, the baby becomes a U.S. citizen. If we deport the parents, then of course we deport the American citizens with them too.
And you're going to deport people who have roots here, been here in many cases for decades, or
what? Well, if you're here illegally and you've stayed out for decades, then that doesn't really fucking matter.
Taxpayers,
Yeah, well,
workers,
that's
contributors.
that's an interesting point he makes, right? Because there are people who were like born in the U.S. and to like illegal parents, right? And or have been or just were brought over here at a young age, and they were not like they didn't immigrate properly, right? And they've pretty much spent their whole lives in the U.S., right? And they don't have a home anywhere else. So that's a good question. Is like what should be done with those people?
Well, the best way would be to build a wall and enforce immigration laws, and also like you can. It's not really that fucking difficult to visit America legally and have a kid in America, even if you are there legally, and that makes it easy to move back legally, right? So there's really no excuse for them to.
Like for example, I met this one guy, right? He was I guess he was brought over from Mexico when he was like a really small child and grew up in the United States, and he doesn't even speak Spanish because he grew up in the US. So he learned English, but he's technically not legal. So it's like, what are you going to do? Send him back to Mexico where he can't even speak the language?
Yeah, they'd be kind of stupid because, like, I mean, like, if you do that and you literally, if he was brought as a kid and you're like, that's like trafficking children, and there should be like a severe punishment for human trafficking. And I can't see why the Democrats, well, actually, I can because the Democrats are the Democrats, why they would like completely encourage the idea of human trafficking. No, it doesn't make sense to deport someone like that, right? But like, yeah, and then if your parents, like, how are you then supporting yourself if they're there illegally? You know, that's really weird. Like, you can technically come to a country if you like have a parent or have a relative to. Yeah, it's very complicated, right? So it's like it's really, really annoying, right? But I think that we should like it doesn't make sense to deport someone like that, but that's why proper immigration enforcement needs to occur. But that's not going to occur because of the fucking Democrats, right? So that's the reason why we need to have. That's why we need to have not just America, but countries in general need to have proper fucking immigration policies. That's just like the only solution. Like, there's nothing else one can do about that. Otherwise, they are literally creating this circumstance on purpose in order to make this dilemma, right? Which is fucking evil. Like, holy smokes, that's wrong, right? And if you were brought as a kid illegally, right? But like, if you grew up there, like, and if you're proven you lived in America for this long time, well, then you can be naturalized, right? But
yeah.
That's fine. Like, I don't mind that. But the problem is when people are using that in order to get citizenship when they can just come here legally. Not here, because I'm not in your country to get one point.
To society, you throw them out too.
And you are going to ignore the law. Is that your preference?
Well, the law is one thing. I mean, I understand the argument about the law, but this is not murder. This is not criminal law. This is a civil issue in our code.
Well, in that sense, nobody should go to jail or be fined for tax evasion either, because illegal immigration is much worse than tax evasion. And I don't really think that trafficking children isn't illegal in America. I think that's kind of illegal. At least it should be. Holy smokes.
I think it is illegal.
There you go.
I believe it's Title VIII, as you probably know. And it's not even analogous to going through a red light. But to equate this and call them criminals when it's not a criminal act, but rather a civil act, is not accurate.
It is illegal to be to do something illegal, and that's what an illegal immigrant does illegally.
Yeah.
Deportation is not murder either.
Well, it's not, but we're not going to likely round up and deport 8, 10, 11, whatever the number is, million people. You know that's not going to happen.
my point is, you wouldn't have to. If you had e-verify, that means to say, if you had to verify the legal status of anyone you employ, and look, I'm all for prosecuting the people who employ illegal immigrants. That would send a very strong message to these people who want to hire cheap Mexicans. I'm all for that.
Mr. Taylor.
Well, that's
Yeah.
no, you first.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, Jared Taylor makes a good point. If they wanted to deport millions of illegal immigrants, they could do it. That just depends on how well they want to enforce it. And there are mechanisms, like he pointed out, which would help with the enforcement.
Right, that
Go
makes
ahead.
perfect sense. Like if no, he's stuttering. It's also like if you employ illegal to subverting wages, and that causes the hard for the reproduction of the people who live in a country, right? And if you want to, and so therefore illegal immigration might it's not murder, no, but it's more like genocide in a way if you do that to cheat wages of the people, because if you really you can still come legally, right? But the illegal make it even cheaper, right? Which means it really difficult for people who want to get jobs, and you also make people's wages lower, which makes reproductivity lower, right? Which is wrong. And if this guy who no, you first.
Well, from what I understand, it only suppresses the wages of like lower skill and like lower educated workers.
Right. Which makes,
for the most part,
that makes perfect sense. But it's still bad because why should a low skilled worker not be able to support his family just because it's fucking illegal? That's still wrong. But it's still good. It's not that bad. It's not worse than that. It's still bad.
And I want to make another point. It's I've heard some economists argue that more immigration is actually a good thing for the economy, right? Especially in the U.S., because most of our immigrants are either like very high skilled or very low skilled, and a lot of Americans are like somewhere in the middle. So if you like put them all together, it actually strengthens the economy, which may actually be true, but it's also true that some people would maybe prefer to have a lower standard of living in exchange for being around more people like themselves, because you get that psychic benefit of being in a place where maybe you feel like you belong, or right. So these economic arguments, okay, like if that's all you care about is economics, I understand, but there's more to the picture than just the economics.
Right. That's because if you think of it, right, what you need the economy, so you can propagate yourself, right? Which means that, but yeah, if you don't want to have your numbers dropping demographically, because then how are you going to propagate yourself that well if you don't have breeding partners? If that thing becomes fewer, then that's bad, right? So the economy is only good for other things. It's never good for itself, right? And demographic replacement is a bad thing, right? And you want the good in the economy to avoid that thing from happening. So it doesn't make any sense to have that for the economy. It's oh God, Lord, praise the economy. No, the economy isn't almighty. The economy is fucking. It's a tool, means of an end. It's not.
Right.
It's not the goal, right? And that's people who don't know that are fucking retarded.
Right.
I need the economy to make sure my people survive well. I don't need to. If it's harming us for the sake of the economy, then that's very counterproductive.
Right.
And this guy loving melting pot and integration so much, then I have another proposition. Let's say that you need to make sure that all people who work in America can speak English. Otherwise, you cannot that'd be cool. You need to speak English. You have that as a requirement, so therefore you can't have fucking illegal immigrants to come via Mexico. You know what I'm saying? And if you go to employment, then they don't demand English of people and if people can't employ by you speaking English, Well, then you should go to the fucking government and say, I just speak English, and I don't get employed because I only speak English. No, that should be enough. Therefore, they get punished for forcing to speak. Not every field of employment, I get it, but like if you go to the fucking Walmart, for example, you should, or like it's a cleaner or a construction worker, right? And you say, oh, you only speak English, you can't work here. No, that should if you really wanted a melting pot or whatever, or integration, then he should support my proposition of make English an official language and make sure that if you speak English, you should not be denied any job that are simple.
Yeah.
Because being bilingual should not be a requirement for fucking working in a construction field. Right, it should be a requirement to speak English, regardless if you speak any other language. It should not be any.
Well, it's interesting because there are parts of the United States where people speak like majority Spanish, and not too many people speak English, like El Paso, Texas, or certain parts of Miami, Florida, or a lot of cities like near the southern border.
No, I get that. Like, I'm not even to think that it's like it's the best idea ever. I'm just saying that if you grew up in a predominantly English-speaking town, in a predominantly English-speaking state, in a predominantly English-speaking country, and you're low-skilled and want to work in construction, then you should not be required to speak another language than English.
Oh yeah,
that's what I mean. I don't want this idea of like making this, but I mean the main thing is like making it as a proposition.
Well, but I don't know. Like maybe depending where they're working, maybe that's if they're working in one of these areas where everyone else speaks Spanish, well, maybe they have to also speak Spanish to communicate with their coworkers.
That makes sense if there's a Spanish-speaking area, but that should not. My point is that to protect English-speaking areas, not to protect all places. Because, like, okay, then I can basically say, if I want to open a business in Louisiana, then by that logic, I can require everybody to speak French. I should be able to do that, right?
Yeah, I'd say exactly, right? You probably should be allowed to do that. Yeah.
Yes, I actually don't think that it should be like forcing everybody to just get by in English. I don't think that. I just think that that should be the case in predominantly English-speaking places that have historically been English-speaking, because it's not fair for the people who live in the English-speaking area to have to be required to learn another language unless they're working in outside of that area, for example.
Okay.
And I think that same actually could apply to people who speak French or Spanish. Like if you, for example, live in a predominantly Spanish-speaking area, or Francophone area, then you should be able to protect the Spanish and French there too, because they're also languages. My point is that America is not, because the thing I'm saying about these languages, that means America have never been and should not be a melting pot. The idea that if having an official language is un-American, then a melting pot is un-American.
Oh, right.
Like you cannot say we are a melting pot. We should have different. Like no. Then you're
a melting pot. To me, a melting pot would imply that everybody has to mix together and assimilate. Whereas,
that's
like
everybody speak English, which was
I've heard
when the government did that in the past. I might add.
Yeah, I've heard people say America is more like a salad bowl, right?
Exactly.
Like, you have a lot of different ingredients in the salad, but they're not all mixed together. They're still separate, but in the same bowl.
Right. That's actually kind of good. Like, I'm not really a big fan of like the language policies of Quebec, but I would say that compared, but if a Francophone era were to be shifted to Spanish, I think that's worse than Quebec, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is basically what my position is. So therefore, the melting pot is bullshit, and we have diversity instead. And the melting pot is un-American. If a single language pool is un-American, then a melting pot is un-American too. So yeah, and yeah, it's like melting pot is just garbage bullshit, and it contradict the idea of diversity and the idea of multilingualism. Like, which both are good,
Yeah.
much better things than melting pot. Melting pot is like what
A
France
melting-
did, what America did in the past, like exterminating, or like melting pot is exterminating and destroying culture through genocide, forcing them to conform, usually through violent means. While diversity is letting people be themselves and will integrate how well they please. That's a good thing, and that's what America have historically been. They have been slipbacks here and there, which was tragic, and that should never happen again. But the guy who's making this interview he's contradicting himself, almost, right? Like he's saying this. Yeah, this. I'm sorry, I always get stuck on languages, but I do think that the French language, even though it's very small in America, is a part of the cultural heritage, and I do think that should be. Then I do think that's a valuable thing. I don't want Louisiana to be just as all this to be like Texas and all the states to the west. The way it is. I don't want that. I think that's wrong. So now you're just gonna move on.
Like, I got to take a quick break here, but don't go away. But one or two more things I'd like to ask you. Appreciate your time tonight. Jared Taylor, founder and editor of American Renaissance, who believes that a best America is a white America and that Donald Trump's the person to make it happen. Back in a moment at 877-4AL, and we'll get to your calls in a moment as well. 877-367-2526. I'm Alan Combs. We're talking to Jared Taylor of American Renaissance, who says Donald Trump is the best thing that could happen to white America. You're quoted as having said, Jared, I want my grandchildren to look like my grandparents. I don't want them to look like Anwar Sadat or Fu Manchu or Whoopi Goldberg. But if they did, would you love them any less?
Oh, I'm sure I would love them just as much, but I'm allowed to have preferences, am I not? I just wanted to make a comment about the way you signed off that earlier segment.
Sure.
You may.
I also want to say, like, I wouldn't mind if some of I actually of course I prefer that my kids don't breed with others. I prefer that they breed with my own people, obviously. That's what I prefer personally. But if they want to breed with people of other ethnicities, regardless if they have darker skin tone or not, it's their choice, and I love my children regardless. My point is that I at least want to have some grandchildren that are the same as me, if that makes sense. And I'm gonna have 5 kids, so try to have 5 kids. So I just hope it's gonna work out. And I think with my values, everything will be peachy keen. But I'm not gonna reject if my kid dated someone of a different ethnicity. Like, I'm not that kind of guy, you know. But I do want, of course, my grandchildren to have my genetics, because if you race mix every generation over and over again, then your descendants may not even be your descendants, because your genetics are going to disappear completely.
Right.
And
Yeah,
and
that's
contradictory to animal nature, because we are animals, fundamentally speaking.
Yep, and that's the nature, or that's the risk if you mix way too much.
Yeah, I'm like kind of mixed myself, but I don't want to do it anymore. I might do it anymore because it's difficult to find, spouses and all that. But if I could choose between someone of the same ethnicity as myself or someone related, I would choose the same. But I can only date people of European or Middle Eastern ancestry, because I'm just not attracted to anyone else. I like them, but I'm not attracted to them.
It sounds strange and disturbing that I would prefer that the United States remain majority white, but that is an assumption and a preference that's taken for granted in every non-white country. The Japanese don't allow any immigration because they have this quaint idea that they'd like to remain Japanese. And nobody would ever say that Nigeria or Mexico should have an immigration policy.
Well, Japanese is a nationality, not just a race. It's a nationality.
Japanese people are an ethnicity too. They have unique genetics. They happen to be the majority in their country. Yeah, and they're even minorities in Japan called Ainu and Ryukyuans, who do exist in islands that belong to Japan. Sometimes the Japanese use the term Yamato to distinguish between the ethnic Japanese and minorities, and call also minorities Japanese. But And I just want to say that the idea of a country it's supposed to be a melting pot is an absolute bullshit lie that never existed anywhere. I don't believe in that, and I don't need to marry a woman to have kids. I'm gonna have my own kids the way I want to have my own kids, and everything is gonna be peachy keen for me and my family. Okay, so yeah. Now I'm just going to move on with the video. Oh, sorry. But to be honest, I need to have... No, never mind.
Of course, but Americans at one time thought they had a nationality too.
Where does it say in our Constitution anything about us being a white country? Do you think if our forefathers wanted us to be primarily white, it would have been in our founding document?
The very first immigration law passed in the United States, the naturalization law that allowed who was going to become an American citizen, was passed by the first Congress in 1790. It reserved citizenship only to free white persons. And until 1965, we had an immigration policy that was designed to keep the country majority European.
I do believe that not giving that America was good in giving citizenship to blacks and natives because they were in the country, and to deny that to them would be a horrible human rights violation. So I'm happy that they got their rights, which is a very good thing, I might add. But yeah, I do. I am quite happy. No, but I do think that like having immigration for every part of the world is like kind of stupid. I do believe that if you like, a country can regulate which country their immigrants come from. I think that's perfectly reasonable.
I agree.
Like if you want to have immigration, if from South Africa, Pakistan, or France. Well, I do prefer South Africa and Pakistan if I were to live in, let's say, if I were to live, I don't know, no, South Africa and France. If I were to live in, I don't know, let's say I lived in Australia, right? I would probably prefer countries that are a little bit more historically and culturally and linguistically intertwined with the countries I've already been in. Not into the countries. If I were to live in a country, I would like immigrants to come from countries that are demographically similar to the country I was in, if that makes sense.
Yep, you fit in better. Makes sense.
Exactly.
Was absolutely nothing wrong with that, and that reflected what everyone took for granted, that the United States was a European country and would remain a European country.
But they didn't put it in the Constitution. Why not, if it's so important?
Because they took it absolutely for granted. They never dreamed. I mean, they put in the Constitution that families would love their children more than they love the children of strangers. I mean, this was so obvious there wasn't any need for it. I mean, it's a pity they didn't put it in the Constitution.
So you believe only whites should be citizens of the United States?
No, I've never said that. I think that it should be a self-consciously majority European country. I'm not talking about...
But we're not European, we're American. We're not European.
Well, technically, European is our race, and the majority of Americans, including most Hispanic, I might add, have European heritage. And when Jerry Taylor and me use the term, and actually most people, if you really ask them, use the term European, they generally refer to European as a race. And I think that's completely reasonable. Like, if I were to be completely honest, I'm not that much, I don't have that much care of any particular country, right? My point is that because some of my people live in the US, I care about them. And I don't want them to, lose their culture, and I don't want their culture to be forcefully destroyed just because they happen to share a fucking border with another culture. Like, why? That's stupid. Like, just let people be themselves regardless of where they fucking live. Like, the idea that, oh, we are in this border, which means we must share culture. We must melt the trust and be the same. Like, oh, this is such absolute garbage, complete bullshit. Like, it's idiocy. Like, but my border. Now, borders are a tool used for countries to protect their people, their inhabitants, from other countries. Like the, that's what the borders are. Like, they're not. Like, borders are to protect people, not to harm people, and it's used the same as people inhabit the same country in order to force them to be the same, to destroy, to cultural genocide. is fucking abhorrent, and nobody should accept that ever. I don't accept that. It's bullshit.
Yeah, and I think what Alan is doing here is he's purposefully conflating ethnicity with nationality, and I hate it when
Right.
people do that.
Yeah, that's because most ethnicities and nationalities are shared name, because a lot of ethnicities came about because people get separated into different territories and became countries, and there were little integration and immigration between the two, which developed into new ethnicities over time. But yeah, like are races, but the race is just a regional ancestral continuum effect, which means that when people separate over time, their genetic drift leads them to become a racially different, and that's the race. Genetically different, that's the race. Yeah, it doesn't mean that humans are literally the human races are the same as the races of a fucking dog, for example. It's not the same. That's why it's a human race, right? But technically, races means you supplement for. You can just say meta-ethnicity if you don't like the term race. It's just semantic at the end.
Right.
But yeah, the race.
We know, but we all know what people mean by race. They mean like a group of related ethnicities.
Right. Exactly. Right.
And that does exist in the real world.
Right.
You'd have to throw out all of biology and genetics to deny that.
So the way that, yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Say, oh, but humans don't have races because we're not like dogs. Like, well, no shit, Sherlock. Right? Of course we aren't. But human races describe a different thing than races for other species. It's not like the same, because human genetic diversity is much more limited compared to fucking canines.
European.
Well, we are of European origin. We have a European culture. We have European institutions. And for example, take the state of Israel. Israel has an immigration policy designed to keep Israel Jewish.
Why? That's a good idea. Like, just think about it. Israel was a country because Jewish people wanted to form it, and they did it because it came from the British Empire, right? And they did that because of persecution. Like, regardless of what you think of Israel, like, personally, I don't like any country. Israel decided to exist. The immigration policy is that they are almost entirely like, Israel is mainly a Jewish state. They don't generally allow non-Jewish immigrations, which is in their right. But there are non-Jewish people in Israel, and they're also fine. But you still hear me, right? You still hear the video?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good, because you need to hear this.
I say absolutely God bless them. That's because they realize that if it ceases to be Jewish, it will change in ways that the Jewish Israelis will find unacceptable. The same is true for European Americans, white Americans in the United States.
Well, I'm Jewish, by the way, but I'm not a big Zionist. That may not surprise you. But that's partly because Jews have been chased out of every country they've ever been in. Whites have not, right? So you can't really compare that.
What?
Did you hear that?
Oh, that he's Jewish? Yeah.
Oh, like, it's so fucking funny. It's the stereotype. Look, I need to say it before I keep talking. I'm like Jared Taylor. I don't mind people being Jewish. Jewish people are a race or a ethnicity, like any other. They have a right to exist, right? They are valuable, just like all races are valuable. But the stereotype is so many Jewish supremacists, or not just Jewish supremacists, but that are just so against Europeans having an in-group preference based on race. Right? But it's like so ridiculous. Like, I'm sorry, I don't have any problem with blacks having in-group preference based on race. Why should or the East Asians, right? Or Slavs even? Why do Jews have a problem when Europeans do the same thing as a lot of Jews do? Like, I just find it to be so ridiculous. Right. Like, that's evil. Like, I say, oh, but I'm not like favor of that either. I'm like, well,
because they would say, then they wouldn't feel safe in European countries as a minority.
Okay,
which is Europeans had in-group preference.
Which is okay, but if you don't feel safe for other people being authentically human, you have Israel as an escape hatch. I'm not saying they shouldn't have that, but if you're so afraid
Right.
of Europeans having English preference, then Israel is right there. I don't mind Israel. Don't like Israel. I don't like any country. But I think Israel have a right to exist just as much as any other country, right? So I
Mhm.
do believe that if you as a Jew feel uncomfortable in a country that's predominantly European, which you are allowed to be that way, I don't think most Jews feel that way. At least most Jews I talk to don't really mind at all. Mainly
Mhm.
because they themselves are part European, and I don't mean Ashkenazi Jews who part European ancestors. I mean they have a Jewish parent and a European parent, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. I love that. I love my friends, like you or not, black or not. I love the diversity of my friends. Like that's actually something I really appreciate. It might come strange coming from me. No, it's not strange at all actually, but I do that, right? But if somebody would feel uncomfortable being a majority European with in-group preference, even if you're Jewish or black or Asian or whatever, then that's perfectly reasonable. But the thing is that many Europeans like me are going to have an in-group preference, and if people aren't okay with that, then I'm sorry, but I don't respect that at all. Like that's like saying that if I don't have an in-group preference for being a fucking Walloon or a Breton, and that doesn't mean that I care about Breton, the language of Breton in France, right? Or that I don't care about the Doyle languages and the French language, regardless of where it's spoken, right?
Mhm.
Why shouldn't I care about that? I do care about that. Thanks everybody. And people who are against that are against me, right? I'm sorry, I don't
Right.
care about someone's border, someone's idea about what their country should be like. If a country have a population like the francophone, I want that region to remain francophone, right?
Yeah.
And if people have a problem with that, then fuck that. I don't respect that at all.
And
Like,
and I
who does it bother that 3% of Louisiana speak French? Who does that bother?
right.
Exactly.
And personally, I think probably the best way to maintain that is more political autonomy for
Oh yeah.
but more to a local level as
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like wasn't America founded as being separate states who together decide certain things, but primarily focus on themselves, which means that
Yeah.
they are not trying to meld together into one culture, isn't it? Right, exactly right. So therefore, respect the francophone population of Wisconsin, Doyle-speaking population of Wisconsin and Louisiana. And if people are against that, then they're literally promoting cultural genocide, which is evil. Just like if you respect the Spanish-speaking populations in places like Puerto Rico and New Mexico.
Well, I can compare it in the sense of people wanting to preserve a heritage, wanting to preserve a texture of life, a way of being. I think that is absolutely fundamental. If, for example, people were pouring into, Papua New Guinea, for example, and changing its culture, people would say that was a crime. Look at all the Han Chinese pouring into Tibet. Even liberals like yourself say that's not a good thing. But
yeah, exactly. But it's actually
a very bad thing.
Oh, horrible! It's absolutely ridiculous. It's like, oh, this is part of this country now. Like, oh, this Spanish or Francophone area is now part of America, right? That means you need to change to some subjective idea what America should be. No, fuck that. That's bullshit. I don't respect that at all. Just like I don't respect the idea that that China should be forced to change the region of Tibet to become Chinese. Like, but they are committing not just a cultural genocide, but committing an actual fucking genocide.
Right.
In Tibet. So yeah, that's bullshit.
And
it's
that's
evil. It is a crime against humanity, right? It's crime against Tibetans technically because we are not really affected by it. But it is evil and it's wrong. It's wrong to whenever it happened to whenever people, regardless of what ideas people have about their country. Because China have their idea about their country, right? So which is bullshit. And I can call it bullshit, which I can call the idea of any country bullshit. If Israel or America would want to get, or someone in those countries would want to get rid of minority cultures, that's bullshit, and I'm against that. Fuck all of that shit. It's like it's garbage, absolute garbage. Like the thing about diversity is a fact of life in every country besides North Korea. People don't like diversity. They can fucking go to fucking North Korea.
Yeah,
I fucking say it. Okay, sue me, civic nationalists.
Well, if you're Korean, maybe, but yeah, the
But my
whole
point is
Tibet
that the
thing,
idea of
that's
you
I
first.
think yeah, the whole Tibet thing, that's why the Dalai Lama, I think, said you know, when he was asked about like all these refugees going to Europe, he said, yeah, you know, you should help them, but then send them back, right? Because
Yeah, that sounds reasonable with
because
all the
he
refugees.
because he knows what happened to Tibet, where he's from, right? So
Oh yeah,
um
true.
yeah, makes perfect sense. And that, honestly, I think that would be a more compassionate thing too. If you really want to help people all over the world, is you know, you help them make their own countries better, not just bring them into your own. But
Right, and the best way you basically make people get along and go together is if people are free to associate according to their wishes without having to conform to some ideal of what a country should be. And because of that, I think that and therefore, if you have a country, if people in different areas have different cultures, then well, you have a diverse culture in your country, right? And you're just gonna have to deal with that. If you don't like it, then well, then send that part of the country on this merry way. Give them
yeah,
independence if you're so if you don't want, if you so badly want to have a uniform culture, right? Because cultural genocide is wrong. I don't see why it's
right.
so hard for people to swallow. It's like it's absolute garbage.
Cultural genocide. Well,
Yeah, cultural genocide is to like force uh, force people in a given region to change their culture just to suit
oh,
to use to like, oh, because we happen to be in the same country, that means you need to change to be like us. I'm like, no, I don't want to. If
I
people don't want to integrate, then
mhm.
that's fine. You don't have to integrate
I
with other people. You speak the shared word border.
I would generally agree with that, unless their culture is doing something that's like very violent towards other
It's true.
people. For
True.
example, how Jewish people routinely practice genital mutilation on children.
Right, but that also most
That's no
Americans have,
good.
which is
Like that
terrible.
should be, yeah, and Americans and Filipinos, right?
They
That's
do.
a Oh yeah, Filipinos usually do it at
And Australian
12 years
Aboriginals
old.
and
Um,
sometimes Turks. Not really
yeah,
that much
and
anymore.
so yeah, that's a huge problem.
Oh,
And
and Xhosa,
pe-
unfortunately.
yeah, and people can say, oh, well, that's just part of my culture. You can't force me to change my culture. But you know, when your culture is child abuse, or when your culture is using violence against innocent people, yeah, I mean, you got to draw the line somewhere, and that's where I would draw the line.
Exactly.
We don't want those sorts of cultures living among us.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but you can have unity in diversity, right? The fact, if you have two people coming together, no, being a country, right? Like they can be united, right? They don't have to become the same in order to be united. Like, yeah, it's like that's ridiculous to even claim that's like Switzerland is a good example of that. Like, not like I really like Switzerland, but I don't like any country. But the fact that a country could be united and still have their diversity, it's a good thing. The fact that the United
Yeah,
hated
yeah.
it, and also
And
France decided to be so suppressive about the languages, is so fucking. It's very antithetical, because here's the deal: if you have diversity and you let people freely associate, you get more unity. If you force people to be the same, you're not gonna have unity, my dudes. So therefore, you let people be themselves.
yeah,
But if a cultural practice is harmful, then it needs to be eradicated, and that applies to circumcision. It needs to be destroyed. It needs to be completely
right.
purged. If a country had that, and if I immigrate to a country, people say, "Oh, we should immigrate. You respect the culture." I should respect the good part of the culture. I'm not going to
Yes.
respect retarded ideas like the melting pot ideology or
Right.
circumcision or
Right.
the idea that everybody needs to speak one language, right? No, I think that's bullshit. No, I don't respect that. I
Right.
think that's garbage. I basically just going to say, no, If I go to China, I'm gonna say the thing they're doing to Tibet, that's wrong. I'm not gonna respect that because of your culture, right?
Yeah, I agree.
But the fact that some
Um,
people speak French in rural parts of the United States is not a bad thing, and that should be respected.
yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's nobody's getting harmed from people speaking French.
Right.
But yeah,
Okay,
it's
technically,
interesting.
a lot of people
It's
here get harmed by that, but that's not harm enough. But that's mainly a joke, so just move on.
no, it's interesting. You brought up Switzerland as a an example of a very diverse place because,
More
like I
unique
mentioned,
in America, I might add.
yeah, well, but the reason why they're able to have all that unity is because of what I said earlier about um, more localized political power. Like the Swiss have the canton system,
Right.
and they have a very yeah, they're every canton has like more autonomy, or they have a level of autonomy which allows them to be different and maintain their regional culture, but also, they can still be part of the entire Swiss country.
No, that's true, so. Right? So, yep. And if you basically want to internally immigrate into a country like the US, for example, or Switzerland, or France, or South Africa, you should actually integrate to the local place you're immigrating to, because the country is big. And
yeah,
and the idea that countries should be culturally uniform, I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen unless you have insane oppression, right? And I'm actually happy I was corrected before to say that just having English as an official language is un-American, which I respect that that's true. That's why I like when places like New Mexico have English and Spanish as their official languages. I think they had it on state level, which is really good actually. And the same, I respect that.
Yeah, well, I think it should go even more local than that, though.
No, I think that too. I think that if you are in El Paso, if you want to have Spanish, and it does make sense that you learn Spanish if you want to move to El Paso, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to move to rural Louisiana where people speak French, or to the border with New York border with Quebec where people speak French, then you should learn French.
Absolutely. My family's from Chicago. Like I said, we're Dutch, but Chicago, very diverse place. You have a lot of different ethnicities there. But if you look at Chicago on a micro level, you see, okay, there's a Polish district, there's a Jewish district, there's a Greek district, there's a Mexican district, there's a black district. There used to be Dutch districts, but not so much anymore because we were pretty much replaced over there. If we had more local autonomy, I don't think we would have been replaced. But
exactly, it's so true. And I do think the local autonomy is a very important thing. But I think I should move on with the video now. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
In white countries, European countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United States, that's apparently fine.
What do you think it means on the Statue of Liberty where it says, "Give us your tired, your poor, your teeming masses yearning to breathe free"?
That's a gift from France. Also, but if France were in charge of American policy, then I guess French should be protected in America, as I've been saying for all that. Oh, wait. France is not in charge of American immigrant immigration policy. Oh, well, then what's his fucking point?
Wretched refuse of anybody's shore. Why should I want that? Besides, that poem was put up after the erection of the statue. The statue is liberty enlightening the world. It was a gift to the United States by France because the United States was considered a beacon of liberty, not a magnet for wretched refuse.
A beacon of liberty for anybody who could come here or wanted to come here. Let me ask you this.
No,
look.
Wrong. I keep telling you, till 65, We had a very sensible immigration policy that guaranteed a European majority.
Do you know, Mr. Taylor, by the year 2050 or 2040, it's been surmised, we will no longer be a white majority country. We're likely to be, non-white Hispanic, or certainly whites will not be the majority. Are you fighting a losing battle?
As I've always said, diversity is going to happen regardless of what you think about it. But I think demographic replacement is still wrong, and we can have the diversity without it. So we should be opposed. And yeah, I think that the main problem with having a non-white majority is that you're going to have discriminatory laws against you, and you are not going to have a good time because of that. Not saying that all the people of color are bad, because most of them are not. They're just human like all the other ones. They're equal. We're all equal. All the races are equal, in my opinion. But if you have this CRT propaganda, which is uniquely American, I might add, then it's going to be a very bad time for white Americans. Not all, but many is going to have the rights trampled upon.
And by equal, you mean we're all equally deserving of rights, right?
Yeah, we're all equal. We're all equally human. We're all equally good. We're all equally valuable.
Well, I wouldn't say we're all equally valuable, but
yeah, but we're all equally valuable to ourselves. My point is that, to me, I probably care a little bit more about my own people, but I don't think that we are better or worse than any other. I think that we are valuable as human beings, just like they are. But I just care about more. They are, like, to me, they're more important, if that makes sense. I don't think we are better or worse.
Yeah.
I think we matter.
Yeah.
Maybe so, but it's a battle that I think is worth fighting, because it's something that I think every healthy person, every healthy group takes for granted. Every normal, healthy person wants his people, his group, to prosper and survive. And it has nothing to do with disliking other groups. As I say, the Japanese, they want to stay Japanese. It doesn't mean they hate anybody else, but they have a right to remain Japanese. And I think that whites have a right to countries where they are the majority, where their culture is taken for granted. Why is that a bad thing?
You say that whites are generally less intelligent than East Asians. Would you be more welcoming to East Asians settling here than what?
No, because they're just going to outcompete us. Well, I'm not a white American, but you get my point. You see how I did it? How that went quick? I immediately identify with race over nationality, like in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was like, I didn't even have to think about it. Fun fact, Jerry Taylor have a story like this. He always say that he said, like, this black American boxer was like facing like a white guy from another country, and he was like, don't we have anyone who can beat him? Because he immediately thought of race as like us, even though he shared nationality with the black guy, not with the white guy. You get it?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Oh, I have a good plan. I have a plan that I'm going to have a lot of babies, and therefore all of them are going to breed, and that's gonna be good, and everybody's gonna be great. But I think it's important for kids to be taught that we are not better than any other race. And I think there's so many white people who are racist. They think they're better, and that's why they think that all the races are incapable of harming them, which means that they will be harmed by other races. Not by default, because most people don't want to harm other races, but those who do, which are minority, they will, which is bad. And the same thing goes for evil white people, of course, because white people are just as human like all the other people, regardless of what your school might have taught you.
Blacks.
Oh, yes, unquestionably. I mean, if you had to make a choice between being swapped out by a less intelligent race and then being swapped out by a more intelligent race, yes, East Asians will have less crime, less illegitimacy. They will carry forward Western civilization in some respects. They like classical music, they like Western literature, but they are not us.
Do you think it's fair to stereotype like?
Exactly. All the humans population are allowed to be themselves and the way they are. And it's not about being better or worse. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I think we're equal. I think I'm equal to all the races. I'm the right to be the way I am. It's like they have the right to be the way they are. Freely associate the way we want, if both consent. And nobody should stop us. And nobody should force us. And because I'm not better than them, They say, "Oh, but if you're not better, then why do you care about being replaced?" Because I want to be the majority where I am, regardless when it comes to mass ethnicity or ethnicity itself.
Yeah. Makes sense.
No, so the Asians are so smart. They can just come in and blah blah blah. Well, that doesn't. It's not about them being better or worse. That's not the point. It's just the point is that you don't want to be replaced, and that's it. It's not about being superior or inferior to anybody.
Like this?
I mean, we're talking about averages. All stereotypes are basically true.
Well, maybe less and
well,
less so as time goes on. Look, I do appreciate, Mr. Taylor, you coming on the program tonight and spreading your views, or sharing them, I should say, with our audience. Thank you very much for your time.
It's been my pleasure.
Thanks very much. Derek Taylor, founder, editor of American Renaissance, who, for reasons you can now understand, believes Donald Trump may be the best last hope for a president who'd be good for white people. Back in a moment, name and town only at 877-367-2527.
He is the great white hope. Donald Trump is the great white hope. It's so fun to call him that because nobody knows you're talking about Donald Trump. And out in the public, the great white hope. Oh, that's him. You know. Do you
I'm
mind
guessing.
if I get something to drink, but you can talk, right?
Yeah, that's fine. I wanted to ask you, when was this interview done? I'm assuming it was before Donald Trump was elected.
That'll be a moment until I can answer that question.
Okay.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, because, Donald Trump was elected on his platform that, he was going to build a wall, which, to my knowledge, has still not been completed yet to this date, and it's 2022 right now. So
I actually have been getting conflicting information after Biden took office that there was some construction that they halted, that they restarted after a while, but don't quote me on that.
yeah, I don't know.
But I do think people saying that it wasn't actually possible to build the whole thing in 4 years, even if no one tried to stop it. So it not being done is, if that's true, not really. It's neither here nor there,
Oh yeah. Well, that's a long border. I'm not surprised that it's going to take a long time, but
okay, now I'm here again. Did anything happen before?
Hey.
Well, you did miss a question. When was this interview conducted? Before or after Trump was elected?
Oh, right, now I hear you. I turned off my own volume. That's the reason why I could not hear you. Brilliant, I know. But yeah, so yeah, does anybody have an interesting thing?
Did you hear the question, Jay Willie? When was the interview conducted? Was it? Because I would assume this was before Trump was elected.
I'm not sure. I'm going to look that up. I'm sorry. I think it's easy to look up for me, if I should be honest. I'm trying to check it out right now. It was, I don't know actually, I think it was, but I'm gonna look up when the video was uploaded. That was actually quite recently, I think. Because it wasn't on someone who actually liked Jared Taylor, who re-uploaded him. It was uploaded 2015, so yeah, it's before Trump was like absolutely. Yeah, therefore, the Great White Hope was elected, which was good. The war was all funded, and then Biden stopped it because Biden is a dick who wants to destroy America.
Well, I think also a lot of people during the middle of Trump's presidency, a lot of pro-white people split with Trump too.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
they thought he wasn't really representing their interests.
Yeah, no, I completely get that because he really he did was better, but there were so many things about him that didn't really tick well with. That wasn't really that good. So I'm not gonna say, "Oh, Trump, you're so good. I love you." No. I'm gonna
Yeah.
say, well, a lot of things was good. I get what they're coming from. I completely get that, but I still agree with you that he was the best shot, and it still would be the best shot. I don't see anyone else being better.
Yeah.
But
And he was
I still
certainly
think probably
better than
Gray was
Hillary, which is who he was
God,
running
yeah,
against in
right. I don't see
2016.
another Republican candidate coming up that's better than Trump. To be honest, I just don't see it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But does anybody have anything to add?
Well, certainly not me. I came way too late.
Yeah, you did.
No, I don't have anything else either.
No, that's good. Yeah, but you see why I wanted you to see this, because he was actually so funny. But he was like saying to Jerry Taylor, "Oh no, we are not European," and he was like, and he was say, "Well, yes, we are European heritage." And he was like, "Well, actually, I'm Jewish." I'm like, "Well, then he should have said I'm not European, because Jerry
Right.
Taylor has European ancestry apparently." So that's just bullshit. Yeah. But like,
And there's a stereotype that always happens.
Someone should do like a super cut of every time this happened on camera.
that'd be fun. That'd be fun. Yeah, that'd be fun because but that's so interesting because like I'm not against anyone having an anger preference. I think that's just normal and healthy and human.
Yeah.
Being against that someone have that, that's literally saying that, oh no, you can't have that because you can't be proper human. That's not saying that, because having that is just being a normal human.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that. And I at one point I didn't understand it either, but I think the best way it was explained to me is if you have an in-group preference for your own ethnicity, it's kind of like an extended family. It's kind of like the same value you would give your family, except extended out a little bit more, because you all share the same ancestry, just like you do in your family.
Absolutely, right. And it's the reason why I hate when people make it up about skin color, because a lot of the Frankish people, if you basically were to say people like the colored and the Louisiana Creoles still have Frankish ancestry, even though they're dark. Not all of them are, but many are. And even if you take Europeans as a whole, like people like the Kristang people of Malaysia are pretty dark, and many Hispanics are also, right, but they're still European because of European ancestry. Like it's not the color, it's the
it's the ancestry.
Exactly, right. There just happens so that pure Europeans tend to just be light skinned, but a pure Georgian and a pure Korean is just light skinned as a European.
Right.
So it's not skin, it's not about the color, it's not about what here, it's about what's in here. Mainly in here, I might add, which is the main difference between the ethnicities, I might add.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, just to paraphrase, I don't think that my ethnicity is better than the others. I don't think that. You say everybody on YouTube, no. So if anybody wants to review this, blah, 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 or whatever, that's not my position. So
I would say my ethnicity is probably better in some ways and worse in some ways. You can't be the best at everything.
You're sure better at reaching things at high shelves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, my people are very good at absorbing more vitamin D, I suppose, and we're also kind of good at. Well, I do. Well, I don't. There is something more, right?
Yeah.
Because I never really
Oh, I'm
think
sure.
about being better or worse, because that's not
Mm.
usually the way I'm thinking about it.
And of course, we're talking about, in general, on average, like on the aggregate. Yeah, I mean, there might be
Right.
like individuals who are better in some way, but that are better or worse, like and yeah, there's individuals in every ethnicity that like might be worse than other individuals in or outside that ethnicity, right? Everybody's different, and that's fine.
Right, and it's also so that people.
It doesn't mean you hate them. It doesn't mean they're any less deserving of rights. It doesn't make them any less human. We're just different.
It's actually a very good thing that people are so different. It ensures the survival of the human species.
Yes, that's very valuable. Like, what can be more valuable than that? Okay,
but it's like I always have to stress this point, because every single time it's like people take it to the extreme. They're like, oh, well, you think some people are better at some things and worse at other things. Well, that must mean you want to genocide everybody. Well, no, that doesn't mean that.
Yeah, we've been talking against genocide for basically this entire stream. So basically, I decided if I want to end this stream, I think I'm going to end it speaking patois, and then I'm going to say le peuple parlait le langue d'oil résident des Américains, parlait de Wisconsin. Walloon et américain français inclus. Le francophone de Walloon cause pepperel résident de l'américain. On se parle, on se langue. Deal with it. You get it?
No, I didn't understand anything you said, except for
Really?
deal with it.
Yeah, no. I think this is very, very valuable, and like because it's so sad that American French have like a lower status, but it's still a better language than Persian French. It's like so sad. But if there's no patois, then what is patois? J'y parle the langue d'oil. J'y parle Walloon. Wallon and langue indigène. La Belgique parlait de Wisconsin, américain, et Belgique et français. La France, le peuple parle le patois. Le Walloon patois est indigène de Ardennes et rayon de France. Vous parlez cette langue. Cette langue, j'y parle est patois, Walloon. Right, so therefore, I need to say, ne peuple genocide, le langue d'oil parlait le Louisiana, de Wisconsin. Cette langue est bien. You agree?
I don't know. I don't.
It certainly should
speak that
keep existing.
language.
Oh, well, you do agree then. Yeah, and we should exist wherever we are, because our language is fucking beautiful. I like English too. That's the reason. But the beautiful thing about language is that we can coexist. You can have English and Dole-speaking languages right in the same country. Because if it wasn't for Dole-speaking language, the English people speak wouldn't fucking exist the way it does. It would be like fucking Frisia, right? So, yeah, like we have some credit there to give. So yeah.
It's incredibly easy to coexist because English is very easy to learn. So just let those people speak their own language. All they have to do is also learn English to communicate with the rest of the people.
Oh, exactly right. Actually, this is actually going to stray away from something that Jared Taylor said, but actually one thing I like about some African immigration to parts of America was that in New York, not the city, but New York, there was some Francophone immigrants from French-speaking Africa, and they met like people who spoke American French, and it was like so cool because because that means like was a resurrection. So there's like this is a stupid thing. If you destroy a language in one region, lucky it wasn't destroyed, but then it's going to come other people, and then their language is going to take over, which means that you didn't even destroy the language for the benefit of the predominant language. But I do believe that English-speaking regions should be able to, you know, keep their language. But I do believe that French is a very useful tool because actually, actually, like Jerry Taylor, right? He actually raises his younger daughter in French, um, and that's very good, right? Because that means that like harmful propaganda is not going to it's not going to be able to affect it that much, and that's the reason why the American French is such a valuable language. It's a very useful tool because to shield your children from that, and that's the reason why I want to keep speak. I don't speak American French, but you get my point. I'm gonna speak it wherever I'm fucking at, right? And I will probably transmit it to my children, unless I have a spouse with another language that is more that I like better, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? But it's not really possible to. It's not really possible to like, estimate that because I don't know who I'm gonna end up with. I just know he's gonna be European.
The only thing that is for certain that you should raise your children majority one language, because knowing one language very well is paramount to the ability to think and communicate in all languages.
Yeah, that's true, but you can do that by being bilingual. Like if you have two parents, right? Then one speaking each language, but then one language is gonna be the language they all speak together. So if there are two languages, one language is spoken when they're all speaking all three, and then both parents have one language, which the kid have two parents, like one speaking language one and language two, right? But they
Yeah.
all use language two when they speak all three together.
That is acceptable. I've
Yeah,
seen parents who trilingual, and just the language skills of those kids. No,
yeah,
bad
that's
in
too
all
much.
three. Bad in all three. Some not with some genius kids who have very great talent for language, but if you choose to be bilingual, what you described is exactly how to do it.
No, exactly right. That's what I'm gonna do. And that's probably the reason why my pathway is not as good as my English, because which is fine, right? But I'm going to improve it. So yeah, that's what I like. And I also like, but it's also not just fun to speak. You also like to show off with another language, don't you agree? That's kind of funny though.
Well, not me. I was forced against my will.
No, but it's fun to like you switch another language like out of the blue and then like hear people. That's like whoa, that's pretty surprising. That's pretty cool. I love when people do that. Like, you watch the people talking in one language forever, and then you flip to a different language out of the blue, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? I just find it to be funny. I don't know why, but I do.
Yeah, that is. I only experience that when I interact with Germans, when I'm with Swiss people, and then I switch to German to speak with them. I'm like, wait, he can do that? Is that legal? Germans are weird.
Yeah. Well, I think we're just going to focus on each other to just ignore all the negativity, because we're like. So yeah,
It's an overstatement. It's just like they must assume that we also learn proper German just because our language sounds like some weird gobbledygook.
oh yeah, that's so true. But it's still kind of cool though. But I don't even know how Swiss German sounds like, to be honest.
You don't need to.
No, that's fine. Well, we are live, so like you make this call. I just decided that I want to speak my beautiful language because it's so perfect, like a rich culture. Like nothing sets inferiority more than having to like want to kill off on other people's culture and language. But isn't provably because languages cannot really be harmful, that doesn't really compute. But like, but that's like the worst inferiority complex. Like, oh my god, what if they could have something that the other people spoke? Oh my god, think about it's like, yeah, it's kind of bullshit. Like, J'y parle, patois est bien lang. Y parler, le mot à peu près. Dis so, dis, Walunkuas. Walunkuas is bien. Should we end the stream now? Or do you have anything to add?
It's your call, man.
Oh, I'm done.
No, I'm basically just going to I'm just going to end it like this, and I'm going to wave everybody goodbye. And it was a lovely call between us, and we get to hash out we basically get to hash out our ideas, not idea but just facts, and therefore I would just like to say that diversity would always prevail, and bienvenue, au revoir.